Mary Collins would never forget the first time she heard it.
Grandma, the first color is blue.
Ethan had whispered in his sleep. His small lips barely moving, his voice clear as if he were awake. The words clung to her mind as she sat on the bus, watching the landscape shift from noisy markets and small brick shops to manicured lawns and glass towers. The city fell behind. The wealthy suburbs rose ahead. She gripped her worn handbag tighter, feeling her heartbeat quicken. She was on her way to watch her grandson for a week. It should have been simple. Yet something felt wrong, as though that dreamlike phrase were a warning. When the cab dropped her off, she stood before an enormous stone gate. The mansion beyond looked less like a family home and more like a fortress. Even the front door gleamed with cold perfection, thick, metallic, unwelcoming. Mary paused before pressing the buzzer. A guard's voice answered.
Yes?
This is Mary Collins, Emily's mother.
She said, bowing her head as if the guard could see the gesture. Moments later the door clicked open. A wave of perfume drifted out, the kind she remembered only from department stores, too sweet, too artificial, almost painful.
Mom.
Emily came rushing barefoot down the polished floor, her smile wide but strained. Mary hugged her daughter, noticing the tremor in her thin shoulders. Beneath the designer dress, Emily looked smaller than she remembered. Her cheeks were hollow, her eyes shadowed.
You look tired, sweetheart.
Mary whispered. Emily forced a laugh.
It's just the project at David's firm. Stress, you know. But come inside, Mom.
Behind her, David Miller appeared. Impeccable suit. Expensive watch. Smile that never reached his eyes.
Mrs. Collins,
he said politely, extending a hand but not meeting her gaze. His eyes flicked over her shoulder, as if she were invisible.
we appreciate you coming all this way.
His tone was courteous. The weight behind it was not. Mary nodded, clutching the small cloth bag she had carried from her market town. Inside were jars of homemade jam, spices, and oil, gifts for her daughter's kitchen. David's eyes dropped to the bag.
You really shouldn't trouble yourself. We have everything we need here. Next time, just bring yourself.
It sounded less like concern and more like an order. Mary smiled faintly, refusing to let the sting show.
A grandmother cooks with her own hands. That way she knows her grandson eats well.
David did not argue. He simply turned and walked toward his study, the door closing with quiet finality. Mary unpacked slowly, her hands moving by habit while her mind traced every detail of the house. The marble floor was spotless, the ceilings impossibly high, but the place felt hollow. A house without warmth. A box lined with luxury. Emily busied herself in the kitchen, pouring tea. Mary studied her daughter in the slant of afternoon light. Once, Emily's face had been soft and bright. Now, her jawline was sharp, her smile brittle.
Emily,
Mary asked gently.
are you eating enough? You've lost weight.
Emily set the cup down too quickly. The porcelain clinked against the glass table.
I'm fine, Mom. Really. David buys me too much good food. I just diet, that's all.
Mary didn't answer. Her eyes had already noticed the faint yellow bruise peeking from beneath Emily's sleeve.
What happened to your wrist?
The words escaped louder than intended. Emily's eyes widened. She tugged the sleeve down fast.
Nothing. I bumped into the cabinet last night. It's nothing.
Mary reached out instinctively.
Let me see.
No, Mom.
Emily snapped, then softened, forcing a laugh.
You're overreacting. It's fine. I'm fine.
But Mary knew bruises. She had spent her life hauling crates, scraping her arms, colliding with wooden stalls. She knew the difference between an accident and something darker. The study door opened. David's presence filled the air like frost.
What's for dinner?
His voice was flat. Emily straightened, smiling too brightly.
Maybe I'll order something nice for all of us.
Not for me. I'll have something later.
He grabbed a bottle of water and disappeared back into the study. The door closed hard enough to echo. Emily turned back to her mother with a thin smile.
He's under pressure, Mom. The project. It's just stress.
Mary said nothing. She only thought of the bruise again, and the way Emily's shoulders had stiffened at her husband's voice. Later that evening, Ethan came home from preschool. His small body launched into Mary's arms, filling her chest with warmth she hadn't felt all day.
Grandma, play with me.
His laughter was real, untarnished. At dinner, David never joined them. The table held Mary, Emily, and Ethan alone. Mary cooked stew with the spices she'd brought, the scent spreading like a shield against the house's chill. Ethan ate eagerly, praising his grandmother's food with every spoonful. Emily smiled faintly, but the smile seemed fragile, almost guilty. That night, Mary tucked Ethan into his bed. His room looked like a showroom, rows of perfect toys, untouched books, a bedspread too clean. She sat beside him, stroking his hair until his breathing slowed. Then, in the half-dark, he whispered again.
Grandma, remember? The rainbow safe game. First is blue, then red.
Mary froze.
What do you mean, sweetheart?
But Ethan was already asleep, his lips parted, his small chest rising and falling. Mary stared at him, heart pounding. A bruise on her daughter's wrist. A son-in-law who avoided her eyes. A mansion colder than any winter. And now this, words that sounded like a code. The marble walls felt closer, heavier, as if they were listening. Mary knew, with sudden certainty, that this house was hiding something. Mary woke before the house did. Dawn slid across the marble like a blade, the light felt colder here. She made coffee in a machine that hummed like a quiet jet. Then stood at the window and watched a gardener trim an already perfect hedge. Precision everywhere, comfort nowhere. She replayed Ethan's whisper, first blue, then red. The words had a rhythm, like steps you didn't want to take and couldn't stop taking. Emily shuffled into the kitchen in a sweatshirt 2 sizes too big, sleeves dragged over her hands.
You're up early,
She said, voice hoarse.
Habit.
Mary answered. She poured a mug and set it in front of her daughter.
You slept.
A little.
Emily tried a smile. It slid away.
David left for the gym. He'll be in the city afterwards.
Mary nodded. The house, without David's presence, seemed to exhale. She wanted to reach for Emily's wrist, to ask again, to press until truth came out. Instead, she studied the room, the expensive knives, the gleaming counters, the absence of crumbs. Control, Mary thought. Control lives here.
Mom,
Emily said softly.
thank you for coming.
Mary squeezed her daughter's shoulder.
We'll be fine.
When Emily went to shower, Mary washed the already clean counter. Hands needed actions when the mind spun. A streak on the stainless fridge caught her eye. She rubbed it away and saw her reflection, a small woman with tired eyes, hair pulled tight, jaw set. She recognized that face from mirrors in old rooms. The look you get before you do something you can't undo. She took her coffee to the great room. On one wall, family photos in monochrome frames, weddings, ski trips, a champagne toast on a boat. In the center, a single oversized portrait. Mary herself, captured years ago at some studio Emily insisted on, the light too sharp, every line on her face proof of time. The frame was heavy, ornate, oddly grand for such a picture. The placement felt ceremonial, or strategic. Mary stepped closer. The glass held the room in a flat reflection. She reached out and touched the frame. The metal was cool. Something in the symmetry of that wall nagged at her, an itch of misalignment. She knelt, slowly, knees protesting, and angled her cheek to the plaster, scanning along the baseboard where shadow made edges sharper. There, the faintest scratch, a thin, straight mark. Then another running parallel above it. She traced them with a fingertip. The wall was smooth, but light told the truth the skin could not. 4 lines, describing a perfect rectangle roughly half a meter by half a meter, centered behind where her portrait hung. Mary stood, pulse steadying into a beat she recognized, work to do. She tugged the portrait an inch. It resisted. She lifted, just enough to feel the bracket catch and release. The frame came free in her hands with a heavy sigh. She leaned it against the sofa and stared at the square of wall it had covered. Up close, the seams weren't visible. The wallpaper joined perfectly, pattern unbroken. But when she moved her head side to side, the invisible rectangle shimmered, a secret fish beneath the surface. She pressed lightly on the lower right corner. Nothing. Upper left. Still nothing. She went around the edges, slower, patient as a locksmith. At the lower right again. She felt the tiniest give, a soft click she could have imagined. The panel depressed a millimeter and sprang back. A latch, perhaps. A sequence, maybe. She held her breath, listening. The house listened back.
Mom.
Emily's voice came down the hall. Mary swung the portrait onto its hook in one smooth motion. Just as Emily entered, toweling her hair.
Looking for a draft.
Mary said, aiming for casual.
This room chills you.
It's the marble.
Emily answered.
Beautiful but cold.
Yes.
Mary said, and let that hang. They took Ethan to preschool. On the drive back, Emily kept her eyes on the road, jaw clenched whenever they passed a cluster of luxury cars gliding through the lanes like sleek predators. Mary watched her daughter's hands at 10 and 2. A small flinch when a song came on the radio. An old track, their kitchen radio song once. Emily changed the station fast.
I'll tidy while you're at your meeting.
Mary said.
You don't have to clean.
Emily replied.
We have a service.
Sometimes cleaning is thinking.
Mary said. Emily didn't argue. When Emily left, Mary stood in the center of the great room. And made herself very still. Silence has textures. Here it felt padded, engineered, like something installed. She moved first to the bookshelf, rows of design volumes, unread and perfect. Then to the sideboard, opening drawers inch by inch, linen napkins folded with military precision, a remote, a single roll of tape. She returned to the portrait. This time she took a dish towel from the kitchen and slung it over the top edge of the frame to muffle sound, then lifted the picture down. The wall showed her nothing and everything. She pressed each corner in sequence. Then the midpoints, then slid her palm along the edges as if reading Braille. A click again at the lower right, real as bone. She pressed twice, then pressed the upper left. Another click, faint and metallic. The panel did not open. Not yet. Mary replaced the portrait and moved on. The study was David's territory. The door opened to a room. Curated to impress, a core of dark wood, leather, and quiet machines. The shelves held awards with glass triangles, spines of financial tomes that glowed with fine printing, a model Ferrari the size of a cat. The desk was spotless. A monitor, a keyboard, a pen laid exactly parallel to the edge. No family pictures. Not even Ethan. The shredder sat beside the desk, squat and hungry. Beneath it, a plastic bin half full of confetti. Mary slipped on the dish gloves she'd tucked into her pocket, a habit from long ago, and lifted the bin. She spread a few handfuls onto the desk blotter and stirred the paper shreds with 2 fingers. Most were white. Banking letterhead. Some cream with faint watermarks. Then she saw color, a shard of vivid blue. Another, red. A strip of yellow, no bigger than a fingernail. With tiny black type along one edge. Numbers and letters, too small to read but too purposeful to be meaningless. She gathered a few colored slivers into her palm and laid them in a line. Blue, red, yellow. She looked into the bin again and found a green fragment, glossy.
Blue, red, yellow, green.
She whispered. The computer monitor slept, its reflection a dark window. A fingerprint scanner glowed faint. Mary's gaze drifted to the bottom drawer. Locked. She tried the top, pens in a tray, spare batteries, a folded microfiber cloth. Second drawer, a stack of car manuals, Porsche, Ferrari, Corvette, Jaguar, different years. She let her fingertips rest on the embossed logos. The manuals were pristine, like the cars in the neighborhood. She lifted the Jaguar booklet and found a service receipt. Oil and detailing, paid in cash. The date was last month. The study door clicked. Mary froze, hand still on the open drawer, another on the Jaguar manual. David stood in the doorway, gym bag on his shoulder, hair wet from a shower elsewhere. He took in the scene without blinking, the open drawer. The gloves on Mary's hands, the shredder bin ajar.
Looking for something?
His voice was neutral, an accountant asking a harmless question. The silence around it was not. Mary measured her breath.
Dust?
She said.
I thought I'd tidy while you were out.
We have a service.
He said, stepping inside. He set the gym bag down and took a slow step closer, then another. He didn't look at her, he looked past her, as if she were already a memory.
I prefer no one to touch my things.
I won't touch.
Mary said, closing the drawer with a soft slide.
I'm old-fashioned. I like order.
A smile touched only one side of his mouth.
Then we agree.
He reached past her to adjust the pen by 1 millimeter, aligning it again. Mary could smell his cologne, cold mint over steel. He lifted the shredder bin and seated it, his movements precise, ritualistic. She removed her gloves and folded them into her pocket.
Ethan loves his toys.
She said lightly.
His piggy bank, quite something. He must be saving a fortune.
David's eyes flickered, a whisper of movement beneath the ice.
Children need to learn.
He said.
About value.
Of course.
He walked her to the door without touching her.
Let me be clear, Mary.
He said, voice still soft.
I like boundaries.
The study is one. The wall controls are another. If you need anything, ask Emily. He closed the door between them. She stood in the hall and let the veneer of politeness peel off. In her mind, revealing the grain beneath. Boundaries, walls, controls. He had said wall controls. Mary went to Ethan's room while the house buzzed with the faint sound of the study door locking. The piggy bank sat on a shelf above the picture books. Bright red plastic shaped like a smiling pig, glossy and new. Mary lifted it with 2 hands and almost lost her balance. Heavier than any child's savings. She shook it gently. No coins sang. Something heavy thudded inside, dull and certain. She turned the pig over. The coin slot had been sealed with a clear epoxy, smooth as glass. Not meant to open. Not without destroying it. She imagined a small hand trying and failing, a bigger hand saying no. Her jaw tightened. She set the pig down with care, like a bomb that hadn't been armed. On the dresser lay a row of toy cars, a blue Porsche, a red Ferrari, a yellow Corvette, a green Jaguar. Ethan had lined them up perfectly, bumper to bumper, as if waiting to race. Mary ran a finger over the Porsche's roof. Dustless. Used and cleaned or never used at all. Her phone vibrated. A message from Emily, running late. Can you pick up Ethan at 3? Mary typed, of course. And slid the phone back into her pocket. She spent the late morning in small, ordinary tasks, laundry that didn't need washing. Ironing a shirt that had no wrinkles. The motions grounded her, blew away the sharpest edges of fear. Fear had kept people quiet in the old days, in the cheap apartments where the walls were thin and fists were loud. But Mary had learned something else too. Fear is useful when you steer it. At noon, she made a sandwich and sat alone at the massive dining table, sunlight painting pale squares on the wood. She let her mind walk backward through time, a kitchen with linoleum curling at the corners, a radio playing old country. A man's boots by the door and the mood that came with them. Her own mother's silence like a riddle no one solved. Mary had vowed at 18 that she'd never lie behind a quiet mask again. She would speak. She would move. Yet here she was, measuring each breath in a rich man's house, slipping like a shadow. She cleaned her plate and went to the great room. The portrait watched her with her own eyes. She lifted it down again, slower now, and worked the corner sequence, lower right, upper left, upper right. Listening as if the panel were a chest with a heartbeat. A soft relay clicked somewhere within the wall. The corner depressed a fraction deeper, then held. She pushed at the center. The panel didn't swing. She pressed and released, counting seconds. Something about the timing. And the phrase had a rhythm too, first blue, then red. She tried pressing lower right twice, then upper left once, then held her palm against the center for a count of 3. A whisper of mechanism answered. The panel eased in by a centimeter. And stopped, as if a second key were required. She could feel the cold of metal beneath, a presence just out of reach. She eased the panel back until it seated. Then rehung the portrait and stepped away. Not yet, she told herself. Not alone, not without proof solid enough to survive a storm. On the way to pick up Ethan, she drove past a row of dealerships, glass palaces gleaming with new machines. A billboard showed a grinning family in front of a castle-shaped hotel in Europe. "Make it yours," the slogan said. The word castle made her think of this house, its drawbridge, its moat, its lord who never wore armor because he believed no arrow could reach him. Ethan ran into her arms at pickup, his backpack too big for his small shoulders.
"Grandma!"
he shouted.
"We painted today. I made a rainbow."
I'd love to see,
Mary said. Back home, she spread paper on the kitchen island. Ethan drew with fierce concentration, tongue sticking out just a little. He painted arcs in careful stripes. Blue, red, yellow, green. He paused before adding purple. Mary watched his hands, his choices.
your rainbow is beautiful.
She said.
What comes first?
"Blue,
He said without looking up.
And after blue?
red, then yellow, then green."
He dipped the brush, eyes narrowing.
"Daddy says order matters."
Mary kept her voice light.
Does the order open a door? Like a secret fort?
He giggled.
"It opens the robots."
The robots?
"Daddy's cars are robots. They guard treasure. If you say the color's wrong, they don't let you in."
He leaned closer, cupping a hand to her ear the way children do when they whisper secrets.
"But I can't tell the rest. Daddy said never."
Mary felt a thread pull tight in her chest. She smiled and whispered back.
Then we won't. We'll just paint and that's our secret.
Ethan nodded solemnly. He finished the rainbow and signed his name in block letters that wobbled. When Emily came home, Mary taped the painting to the fridge. Emily stared at it, eyes brightening for the first time all day.
It's lovely.
She said, kissing Ethan's hair.
Mom, did he behave?
He was perfect.
Mary said. David arrived late, the house dipping into evening stillness before the lock clicked. He set his keys in a tray with a controlled little clink. His gaze flicked to the fridge, lingered on the rainbow for a single beat, then moved on. He poured himself water, drank half, and said to Emily,
I'll be in the study.
We could eat together.
Emily ventured.
Mom made.
I'm not hungry. He vanished behind the door. Mary saw her daughter deflate and fold, like paper dampened. After Ethan's bath, after the bedtime story, after the soft good night, Mary stood in the hallway and listened. The study door opened and closed. Footsteps padded across the great room, then stilled. She pictured him at the wall. She pictured his fingers moving in a sequence, touching corners she had touched. She pictured the panel sinking, the metal door beyond. She glanced toward Emily's room. Her daughter sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Mary stepped in, sat beside her.
And?
She said. Emily blinked.
Do you trust me?
Her daughter's mouth trembled.
I don't know what to trust.
Mary took her hand gently, felt the pulse fluttering.
Then trust that I will not let harm stand if I can move it. That's all I ask.
Emily nodded once, eyes glistening, then shook her head as if shaking off a thought.
I'm tired.
I know.
Mary said. She left her there and walked back into the hall. The house had quieted again. The study light glowed under the door like a warning. Mary leaned her back against the cool wall and closed her eyes. She thought of her mother, of neighbors who looked away, of nights when voices should have spoken and didn't. She thought of Ethan's whispering mouth and the heaviness of a plastic pig. She thought of color as code, of walls as locks, of David's smile that never reached his eyes. The next move would matter. She could scratch at secrets until the house spat her out. Or she could gather the pieces and hold them like flint, wait for the one strike that would catch. In the kitchen, the rainbow painting rustled faintly in the air from the vent, its taped corners holding. Blue at the top, then red, then yellow, then green, an arc that promised storm or sun, depending on how you looked. Mary looked until the colors settled into her bones. Then she turned off lights one by one and let the darkness find its places. In her room, she lay down fully clothed, shoes lined neatly by the bed like a soldier ready to move. She kept her phone on the pillow, her eyes on the ceiling where a thin line of streetlight cut across the plaster like a seam. The house slept. The study light died. Somewhere in the walls, a relay clicked, soft as a breath. Mary counted heartbeats and, at last, let her eyes close. Tomorrow, she told herself. Tomorrow, she would push further. And if the walls pushed back, she would learn their weight. Outside, the hedge already trimmed was trimmed again by night wind. Inside, the portrait kept its watch. And behind it, something waited, patient, confident, sure no one would ever call it by its right name. Mary whispered the colors once, just to hear them in the air.
Blue, red, yellow, green.
The words did not echo. They settled, a map no one else could read yet. She let sleep take her in small sips, like someone testing a water she did not trust, and she dreamed of locks that opened only when a child's hand knocked first. In the morning, she would wake to the same cold light and begin again. But the house would not be the same. It had been seen. The morning broke thin and silver. Mary moved through the kitchen like someone crossing a creek on slick stones, careful, deliberate, testing each step before trusting it with her weight. The night had left grit in her eyes and a plan in her bones, push, but not enough to snap, probe, but not enough to bleed. Emily joined her, hair tied back, face bare. The bruise on her wrist had faded to the color of weak tea.
He'll be at the office late,
she said, pouring coffee she did not drink.
There's a dinner with clients.
Mary nodded.
Ethan and I will build a fort.
Emily managed a smile that held for 3 seconds.
He'll like that.
They packed lunches and bundled Ethan into his jacket. On the drive to preschool, Ethan hummed a tune about robots. He kicked his heels gently against the seat. When Mary pulled up to the curb, he turned, serious as a banker.
Grandma, when you make a secret, you can't tell anyone, not even Mommy, Daddy says.
Mary touched his cheek.
Some secrets keep people safe. Some don't. When you're not sure, you tell Grandma.
He thought about that for a whole second, then nodded as if he'd file it away for later. Back at the house, Mary waited until the silence was fully formed before she moved. The portrait came down in one practiced lift. She pressed the corners in the sequence that had given a breath before. Click, click, the faintest responses, a machine waking in a deeper room. The panel eased a finger width and stopped, like a door with a chain. She flattened her palm against the cool square.
Not today,
She whispered.
but soon.
She rehung the portrait and turned to the study. The door stood unlocked. David's scent drifted out, steel and cold mint, stronger today, as if he'd marked the air before leaving. She told herself she would not touch drawers or screens. She would only look for patterns. Patterns were everywhere. On the credenza, a leather tray with 3 keys, each tagged with a number pressed into nickel, 1, 2, 3. On the shelf, a stack of black boxes labeled with tiny codes. DMAR, DMTRVL, DMINV. She opened one, old receipts for hotels, most in New York. A few in Zurich and Geneva, one in Nassau. She photographed the labels with her phone, careful to place each box back exactly. In the bottom of the shelf, a cardboard shipping sleeve, Jaguar logo, addressed to David Miller, signature required, date 2 weeks old. She slid it out, checked inside, a sales brochure, swatches of leather colors, a note, your custom order is confirmed. British racing green. She slid it back. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number flashed across the screen. Mrs. Collins? This is Pam from Ethan's class. He left his water bottle. We've got it at the front desk. She exhaled and typed thank you. The small interruption broke the trance. She left the study untouched and walked through the house as if she were seeing it for the first time. The absence of family clutter, the way light fell in strict, rectangular parcels. The silent piano no one played. A home curated to prove success, not to shelter it. At noon, she took a bus to a strip mall 3 miles away. She bought 3 items with cash, a cheap audio recorder the size of a stick of gum, a pack of felt pads meant for furniture feet, and a small bottle of children's glitter glue. She ate fries alone at a plastic table and wrote 3 phrases on a napkin: blue, red, yellow, green. She underlined them, then added 2 more: timing, touch, secondary key. She folded the napkin and slid it into her pocket. Back home, she stuck the felt pads to the back of the portrait frame at 4 corners. It would hang solid without rattling. She tucked the recorder into the curtain's hem by the great room wall, its mouth pointed at the portrait, and set it to voice activated. If David whispered to the wall at night, the machine would listen. The afternoon moved in household rhythms. She picked up Ethan. They built a fort from couch cushions. They read 2 books under the roof of a blanket, their breath forming a small weather system. Emily joined them briefly, laughing when the blanket sagged. For 10 minutes, Mary saw her daughter as a girl again, barefoot, hair loose, the laugh not borrowed. Then the spell broke and Emily's phone vibrated and she pulled away, the smile closing like a window. Dinner was simple: spaghetti, salad, too much garlic. David texted that he would not be home to eat. Emily chewed the salad and stared at a point somewhere near the middle distance. Ethan slurped noodles and proclaimed the world good. Mary cleaned quietly, waiting for the house to make its next move. It moved at 10:17. The front lock clicked. The alarm chirped. David's footsteps crossed the foyer and came to a stop in the great room. Mary stood in the hall in the dark, one hand on the wall to steady the simmer of her heart. She heard the soft scrape of the portrait lifted an inch, felt rather than heard the machine behind the wall wake and take a breath. She took a step forward, then stopped. If she emerged now, she'd learn nothing except how it felt to be caught. Later, in her room, she checked the recorder's tiny screen. A blue dot blinked, audio captured. She would listen when the house slept like stone. Emily knocked on her door. She came in without waiting, sat on the edge of the bed, and laced her fingers together hard enough to blanch the knuckles.
I don't like it when he's this quiet,
she said.
It means he's decided something.
What did he decide last time?
Mary asked. Emily stared at the floor.
To sell a car, buy another, move money, reassign staff. It all looked normal on the outside. It never felt normal on the inside.
She tried to laugh.
I'm being dramatic.
You're being honest.
Mary said. Emily's eyes lifted, wet and angry and ashamed.
If I pull a thread, Mom, does the whole dress come apart? I worked so hard to climb out. I'm terrified of the fall.
Mary reached for her hand.
What's the point of the dress if it chokes you?
Emily flinched at a sound in the hall. The soft click of a door closing, the study becoming a sealed world again. She stood quickly.
I have to sleep,
she said, which meant I can't. Mary listened to the recording after midnight, earbuds in, posture rigid. The first minute was silence and HVAC. Then a rustle, the muttest creak of a frame lifted slightly, a hushed, electronic tone. A man's breath, close. 3 barely audible taps, 1 2, a pause, then 1. A whisper she could not catch. Then the soft slide of something withdrawing, a stack of paper against metal, a sleeve brushing the panel. The sequence repeated with tiny variations. The pattern was there like a heartbeat you learn by feeling your own neck in the dark. She wrote what she heard in a small notebook, tap the lower right twice, then tap the upper left once, then hold for 3 seconds. Then a hissing sound, then a clicking sound. She wrote deadbolt, biometric. She wrote secondary key, phone, magnet. She wrote until the lines steadied into a plan she could carry, confirm the sequence in daylight, avoid the second key, call if needed. Sleep came in fractures. She dreamed of a safe the size of a wall and a child's hand. Knocking a secret rhythm no adult could imitate. The next day at school drop-off, Ethan clung a little harder.
Daddy says we might go on a trip.
He said, bouncing once on his toes.
A big castle in another country.
Mary crouched, heart kicking once hard against her ribs.
Sounds fancy.
He says I'll ride a green robot across a bridge.
Ethan's eyes sparkled.
But we can't tell. It's a surprise.
Mary hugged him and kept her voice steady.
We'll make our own fort today and pretend it's a castle. Ours will have windows that open.
On the drive back, the radio reported markets up, then down, then up. Nothing in the voice suggested panic. Panic is rarely reported in time. Panic arrives as a knock and a bag by the door. She cleaned. She baked muffins from a box mix, because the act-made rooms smell like people lived in them. She lined up the toy cars on the hallway table, and photographed them as if they were suspects in a lineup. She texted the photos to her own email with no subject line. In the afternoon, while Emily was in the laundry room, Mary tried one small experiment. She stood before the portrait, lifted it, and pressed the lower right corner twice, then the upper left once. She pressed her palm flat and counted to 3. The panel eased. The faint hiss sounded like a breath between clenched teeth. She slid a business card into the seam. Resistance. She did not push further. She let it seat. She rehung the portrait. She erased her prints from the frame with the microfiber cloth Emily kept for the bar cart. A sound behind her. She turned. David stood at the threshold, jacket on, tie loose. How long had he been there? His eyes took in the room the way a scanner takes in a document, top to bottom, edge to center, every pixel evaluated.
Admiring yourself?
He asked, mouth smiling, eyes not.
Just dusting.
Mary said. Her voice felt like it belonged to a woman older than she was. He walked past her to the wall, adjusted the frame a fraction. Then placed a square of tape no bigger than a fingernail on the lower edge, near the right corner, clear as glass. He smoothed it with one precise stroke.
So the hook doesn't scratch the paint.
He said casually. Mary watched his hand. Even his lie had a ritual to it. He pivoted toward her.
Emily tells me you're picking Ethan up again tomorrow.
If you need.
She said.
We need.
He said.
Also, I'll have movers in next week. Some things going to storage, some elsewhere.
Elsewhere?
Mary repeated.
Europe, perhaps.
He showed his teeth.
We'll see.
He left the room without waiting for a response. The quiet he left behind felt like a threat written in invisible ink. That evening, Mary tried again with Emily. They sat at the kitchen island under the pendants that cast perfect circles on the quartz. Mary chose her words like tools.
When you were little and the power went out, you hated the dark. You held my hand and counted 1, 2, 3 until the lights came back. We can count again, but first we have to admit the lights are off.
Emily stared at the marble veining, tracing a line with her fingertip as if it could lead to safety.
You don't understand, Mom. If he falls, everything we built falls with him. The house, the school, my life.
The last two words broke on the counter and soaked into the stone. Mary kept her voice soft.
If he falls, you stop falling with him. You stand.
Emily's breath shuddered. Tears brimmed and did not spill.
I can't do this.
You already are.
Mary said.
Stop.
Emily turned, suddenly sharp.
Please, stop. I hear ghosts in the walls when you talk like this. I can't hear anymore.
Mary backed away because pushing now would snap the thread between them. She could not catch a drowning person who refused to see the water yet. She could only stay on the shore with a rope ready. Night stretched long and taut. The recorder captured more whispers and taps. The house grew a second silence beneath the first. The kind that arrives when farewells are being rehearsed in secret. On the third morning, the announcement came at breakfast, casual as a weather report.
I've resigned.
David said, buttering toast he would not eat.
I need a reset. We all do. I've made arrangements. We'll take some time in Europe. A place in the countryside. Fresh start.
Emily looked up with a shock that contained relief and terror in equal parts.
You resigned?
Effective immediately.
He said.
You'll love it there. Ethan will love it.
Ethan clapped.
Castles.
Mary saw the sales pitch, resign, not flee, countryside. Not jurisdiction, start fresh, not erase evidence. She let her eyes rest on the tape square he'd placed on the frame's bottom edge. It caught the light like a blade. That afternoon, Emily took Ethan to buy craft supplies for school. David announced a series of calls and sealed himself in the study. The house held its breath. Mary moved to the great room and shut the curtains, muting the afternoon glare. She lifted the portrait and pressed the sequence. The panel eased. She slid the business card into the seam and felt it catch, then release. She pressed her ear to the wallpaper and heard the faint hum of electronics. She pressed again, lighter, a quick double tap to the lower right corner. The hum shifted, like a person turning in sleep. She held her palm center for 3 beats. The panel sank another centimeter and stopped. She could see the edge of metal now, dull and gray and absolute. She swallowed and did not go further. Alone, now, she could only confirm what she already knew, a second key, a secondary trigger, a phone, a magnet, a code, the thing that made the final lock unlatch. She let the panel seat and hung the portrait. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emily, running late. Traffic. Be home in 20. Seconds later, another buzz, from an unknown number. Mr. Miller, your wire is ready. Please confirm the destination. The preview flashed and disappeared. Mary didn't open it. She placed the phone on the counter and stepped away as if it were hot. The front door opened. David's voice, low and efficient, drifted from the foyer into the study. The recorder would catch it, her ears did not need to. She sat at the table and folded her hands and counted to 100 twice. When Emily and Ethan came home, the house shifted back to its performance of normal. Dinner, bath, story. The motions were a lullaby. Ethan fell asleep quickly, fort plans abandoned in favor of dreams. Emily stood in the doorway, watching him with the look of a woman who had loved a future and feared it equally.
Mom,
She said without turning.
I can't keep my eyes closed anymore.
Her voice shook, but it did not break.
If I open them, everything breaks. But I cannot.
Mary stepped beside her and took her hand.
Then we open them together.
Emily nodded, once tight, as if bracing for a wave.
Tomorrow,
She said.
after he leaves for work, we talk. All of it.
Mary squeezed her fingers.
Tomorrow.
After midnight, Mary lay awake and recited the colors into the dark, not to conquer the lock, not even to memorize the sequence. To steady herself for what the morning would require: blue for truth, red for cost, yellow for fear, green for the small shoot that grows in the cracked ground after a hard winter. She did not know yet the words she would say to the people who could move this beyond a house and a wall. She only knew she would say them. And that knowledge, fragile as a matchhead, gave off a flame. Somewhere in the study, a chair moved. Somewhere in the great room, the portrait shifted a whisper. Somewhere deep in the house, metal touched metal. The recorder waited. So did Mary. At 4, the first birds sang. At 5, the sprinkler hissed to life outside, a soft applause for a lawn that didn't need it. At 6, Mary rose. She washed her face in cold water. She set a pot of coffee to brew. She placed 3 mugs on the counter like 3 small flags planted on a new border. The game of silence was ending. The next game would use a different rule book, and Mary, small, tired, ordinary Mary, was ready to read it out loud. The day began with a clarity that frightened Mary. Clear skies, sharp light, a house scrubbed of excuses. David left for the office just after 8, his tie tight, his smile absent. Emily walked him to the door like someone escorting a warden, not a husband. When the lock clicked behind him, the house loosened, and the air felt human again. Mary waited until she heard the car fade from the drive. Then she placed a slip of paper on the counter, FBI Financial Crimes Division, Newark office. She had copied the number from a card Detective Hayes once gave out at a town hall meeting about scams. At the time, she had folded it into her wallet and forgotten. Now her fingers trembled as she dialed. The voice was brisk, professional.
FBI Newark, Financial Crimes.
This is Mary Collins.
She said.
My son-in-law, David Miller, he runs a hedge fund. He's hiding something. A safe, a system. I have evidence.
Silence hummed, then.
Ma'am, what kind of evidence?
Mary described the wall, the sequence of colors, the shredded papers, the piggy bank too heavy for coins. She spoke with the precision of someone pricing produce: weight, texture, pattern, proof. She heard the agent's tone shift from patience to attention.
Stay where you are.
The voice said at last.
We'll be in touch. Do not alert him. Do not confront him.
I won't.
Mary promised.
But he's planning to leave. Soon.
We'll move quickly.
The agent replied.
Trust us.
Emily sat at the kitchen island, face pale.
You called.
Yes.
Mary said. Emily's eyes darted, fear thick as smoke.
They'll take everything. The house, the money, the school.
Mary interrupted softly.
He already took everything. You just haven't seen the empty shelves yet.
Emily pressed her palms to her eyes.
I don't know how to live poor again.
Mary leaned forward.
You know how to live. Poor is only a word. Alive is another.
Emily lowered her hands. Her face looked older, stripped bare. She nodded, once. That night, David returned later than ever. He announced his resignation as if reciting a weather forecast.
It's time for a fresh start. We'll leave next week. Switzerland first, then maybe France. The schools are excellent.
Emily nodded, lips pressed thin. Ethan clapped at the word castle. Mary watched, silent, holding the weight of what she had already set in motion. 2 mornings later, black SUVs lined the cul-de-sac, engines low, windows dark. Neighbors peered from curtains, pretending not to watch. Mary kept Ethan busy with crayons at the table. Emily sat rigid, white-knuckled, as if waiting for an earthquake. At 10:32, David's car rolled into the drive. He stepped out carrying a leather satchel, phone pressed to his ear, voice tight with command. He didn't notice the agents at first, the gardener across the street, the jogger pausing to tie a shoe, the delivery van parked 2 houses down. They moved as one, converging.
David Miller.
A voice boomed.
Federal Bureau of Investigation.
David froze, then spun, satchel clutched close. For a heartbeat, Mary saw a child who had been caught with stolen candy. Then his face hardened into the mask she knew too well.
This is a mistake.
He said coolly, even as 2 agents closed in.
My attorney will.
The satchel was wrenched from his grip. His wrists were cuffed. The phone clattered to the driveway, screen cracking into a spiderweb of light. Emily gasped. Ethan's crayon broke in his hand. Mary rose slowly, guiding her grandson behind her. David's eyes found her through the window. For the first time, the mask cracked. Fury flared there, naked and sharp. Then he was shoved into a waiting SUV, door slammed, face gone. The agents moved quickly through the house. A warrant unfolded on the marble island. Gloves snapped on hands. The portrait came down. The wall panel clicked open under practiced fingers. The safe behind it yawned like a wound. Stacks of bills, bundles of passports, a lattice of hard drives labeled with neat codes, a folder fat with spreadsheets. One agent whistled low.
Textbook Ponzi.
Another held up a hard drive.
This alone sinks him.
Emily covered her mouth. Tears slid through her fingers.
All this time,
Mary put an arm around her, steady as stone.
Now you see the shelves.
For hours, agents cataloged, photographed, boxed, sealed. The mansion that had felt sterile now pulsed with life, voices calling numbers, cameras clicking, footsteps echoing. By dusk, the house looked hollow, stripped not of its marble but of its illusions. Ethan, exhausted, fell asleep on Mary's lap. His head rested against her chest, his breath even. Emily sat across from them, hands limp on her knees, staring into the new emptiness.
what happens now?
She whispered. Mary stroked Ethan's hair.
Now we start over. With air instead of marble. With sunlight instead of shadows.
Emily shook her head slowly, disbelief and grief tangled.
I thought I was protecting him, protecting us, and I was only helping him hide.
Mary met her daughter's eyes.
You were surviving. Now you'll live.
The next week blurred. Reporters camped on the sidewalk. Headlines shouted Wall Street miracle man arrested in $500 million Ponzi scheme. Neighbors avoided eye contact. Bank accounts froze. The mansion, once fortress, became cage. By the month's end, Emily signed the papers. The house was gone. The cars were seized. The accounts drained into restitution funds. What remained fit into a few boxes and bags. Mary's small townhouse, with its crooked porch and sun-worn siding, absorbed them. Ethan claimed the spare bedroom. Emily slept on the fold-out couch. Mary cooked beans and cornbread, simple food that filled the house with warmth. It wasn't easy. The nights were long, and Emily cried when she thought no one listened. Ethan woke from dreams of robots guarding treasures. But slowly, cracks let light in. One evening, Mary found Emily in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, kneading dough with flour streaked on her cheek.
Feels good to make something real.
Emily murmured. Mary smiled.
Real is what lasts.
Weeks later, Mary sat at the table with the morning paper. A headline read, David Miller charged with new fraud inside prison. She folded the paper and set it aside. Ethan played on the rug with blocks. Emily poured coffee and joined her mother, shoulders still heavy but no longer bent.
He never stops,
Emily said quietly.
No,
Mary agreed.
but neither do we.
Emily met her eyes, and this time there was no shame, only a tired kind of strength. Mary reached across the table and clasped her daughter's hand. The morning light poured through the window, warm and ordinary. For the first time in years, the house, this small, crooked, sunlit house, felt like home. The first winter in Mary's old townhouse was harsh. Drafts crept through the window frames, and the heating unit clanked like an aging drum. The walls carried the smell of plaster and damp wood instead of polish and marble. To Emily, who had spent years walking on stone floors beneath chandeliers, the place looked small, shabby, almost broken. But to Mary, it breathed. It was alive. They had moved in with little more than boxes, a few clothes, Ethan's toys, Emily's journals, Mary's quilts. The rest had been claimed by the government: cars, jewelry, paintings, even the silk rugs David once boasted were imported from Persia. Emily cried the first week. She hid in the bathroom. But Mary could hear her daughter's sobs through the thin door. Ethan clung to Mary, asking questions she couldn't answer.
Why can't Daddy come back? Why did the men take all our things? Why do we live here now?
Mary answered carefully, always in words small enough for a child.
Because Daddy made mistakes. Because things don't matter as much as people. Because this is our house now, and houses don't need to be big to keep love inside.
Ethan didn't understand fully, but he accepted the rhythm of her voice, the warmth of her arms. By spring, routines began to form. Emily found work at a small cafe near the bus stop. The job paid little, but it gave her something she hadn't felt in years: agency. She came home smelling of coffee and cinnamon muffins, her hair pulled into a simple bun, her face free of makeup.
I served 80 customers today.
She told Mary one night, kicking off her sneakers.
They thanked me, not because I had money, not because of who I was married to. They thanked me because I made their coffee right.
Mary smiled across the kitchen table, sliding her daughter a plate of beans and rice.
That's worth more than marble.
Emily looked down at the food, then up again. She didn't smile, but her eyes held gratitude. Ethan adapted faster. He attended the local kindergarten, where children wore second-hand jackets and brought peanut butter sandwiches instead of catered lunches. At first, he asked why his clothes weren't new. Why they no longer had a driver to pick him up. Why Grandma walked him through cracked sidewalks instead of gates guarded by security. Mary told him,
Because this is where real kids grow strong. And you are real.
Soon Ethan stopped asking. He began running with the other children, his shoes scuffing, his laughter loud. He built forts from cardboard boxes, skinned his knee, and came home proud of every bandage. The nightmares about rainbow codes faded. He slept deeply, sprawled across his small bed with toys scattered around him. In late summer, Emily received a letter from the Federal Restitution Board. Victims of David's scheme had filed for compensation, and though Emily was not charged, she was considered a beneficiary of his fraud. She would be required to testify and surrender the last of her jewelry, small pieces she had hidden, thinking they might be spared. Emily read the letter 3 times, her hands shaking.
They'll never forgive me.
She whispered.
The investors, the people who lost everything.
Mary took the letter, folded it, and set it aside.
Forgiveness isn't ours to manage, but honesty is.
Emily nodded. That week she sat with a government lawyer and told everything she knew. Every suspicious document David once asked her to sign. Every party where he whispered about new investors, every night she looked away. She returned home pale, drained, but lighter.
I told the truth,
she said simply. Mary wrapped her arms around her daughter.
That's how we pay back. one word at a time.
Autumn came. The leaves turned red, then brittle. Mary stitched blankets in the evenings, her fingers busy while Emily read library books beside her. Ethan sprawled on the rug with toy cars. One night, the news played footage of David in court. He looked thinner, older, yet his eyes burned with the same arrogance. The anchor reported new charges. He had attempted to run scams even behind bars, promising fellow inmates early release in exchange for bribes. Emily muted the television. For a moment she stared at the image of the man she had once promised to love forever. Then she reached for the remote and switched off the set.
I don't want him in this house,
she said. Mary watched her daughter's steady profile, the strength in her voice.
He isn't.
Mary answered.
Not anymore.
That winter, the townhouse glowed from within. They baked bread on weekends. They painted Ethan's room sky blue with leftover paint from the hardware store. Mary grew herbs in chipped mugs along the windowsill. On Christmas Eve, neighbors dropped by with cookies. Mary opened the door to laughter, warmth, and faces unguarded by wealth. For the first time, Emily joined in, pouring cocoa, her cheeks flushed with something other than shame. Ethan ran barefoot across the living room, dragging a blanket cape.
Grandma! Mommy! Come see my fortress.
He had built it from chairs and quilts, a crooked castle that leaned more than it stood. But his grin was fierce, triumphant. Mary crouched to inspect it.
Sturdiest castle I've ever seen.
Ethan puffed his chest.
And it's ours. No bad guys allowed.
Emily knelt beside her mother, laughter bubbling from her throat. She hadn't laughed like that in years. By spring again, life had settled into something steady, something possible. The news no longer followed David's trial. His name slipped from headlines, fading like smoke. One evening, Mary sat on the porch, the sun sinking gold behind the rooftops. Emily came out with 2 cups of tea. She set one beside her mother and sat, tucking her legs under her.
Mom,
she said quietly.
I'm sorry.
Mary turned.
For what?
For not listening. For letting him blind me. For believing that marble meant safety.
Mary placed a hand over Emily's.
You don't have to apologize for being human. You only have to keep walking forward.
Emily's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She squeezed her mother's hand instead. Inside, Ethan's voice carried through the window, bright and insistent.
Grandma, come play robots.
Mary smiled.
Forward it is.
That night, after Ethan was asleep, Emily lingered in the doorway of her son's room. She watched him breathe, small fists curled near his face, hair tousled. She turned to Mary.
He doesn't remember the mansion,
she whispered.
He dreams about forts made of blankets, not safes behind walls.
Mary nodded.
That's how it should be.
Months later, on an ordinary Tuesday, the 3 of them sat in the living room. Emily was curled on the couch with a library novel. Mary worked her needles, yarn unraveling into a soft scarf. Ethan sprawled on the floor, building towers with blocks. The air was warm. The window was cracked, letting in the sound of children playing in the street. No marble, no perfume, no silence filled with secrets. Ethan looked up, his eyes bright.
Grandma?
Yes, sweetheart?
Are we safe now?
Mary set her needles down. She looked at her daughter, alive, working, present. She looked at her grandson, innocent, growing, free. She looked around the humble room filled with sunlight.
Yes.
She said, her voice firm.
We are safe.
Ethan smiled, satisfied, and returned to his tower. Mary leaned back, closing her eyes. For the first time in years, her chest felt light. The battle was over. The fortress of marble had fallen. And in its place stood something stronger, an ordinary home, stitched together by truth, laughter, and sunlight. It was enough.